Hello YouTube, we're back and this is the second part. I'm actually going to clean it, which I generally don't like to let it get too dirty. I try to clean it once every 2 weeks or so. So I'm just going to start by taking a cleaning patch, which I have rim oil. Use whatever you like. I guess gun oil is about like motor oils. You know, everybody's got their own likes and dislikes and opinions on what's best, but take your cleaning rod, I like the push jags, and just run you an oil soak patch down your barrel. Now, like I said, this is just, maintenance clean. It's not been fired since the last time it was cleaned. So, oil soak patch, picks up a little, dust and junk, but it's not really dirty in the barrel or anything like that. If it had been fired and I was cleaning up after a range day, I would start out with that. I beg your pardon. I would start out with this here. I'm going to filter strip it like I showed you in the previous video. This is actually foaming. I'm a board cleaner. So I'd probably filter strip it, take this here, I'm going to spray it down the bore until it comes out the other end, and then just set it down and walk off for about 30 minutes. Then when I came back, I would probably take a wire brush, which you should always use you should always use the copper ones. You don't really want to use steel or anything like that. But I would, after it sat and soaked, I'd take one of these, put on my cleaning rod, I'd run it through, and then I would probably wet patch it, dry patch it, wet patch it, dry patch it till it came nice and clean. But like I said, this one hasn't been fired since the last time I cleaned it, so a wet patch soaked with oil, and then run you a dry patch. Now, if you can help it, especially if you can disassemble the firearm, you want to try to run your patches and everything from the breech side of it instead of the muzzle, because your muzzle has what's called a crown, and your crown basically is the last point of contact between the bullet and the barrel. And even though it's kind of a rare occurrence, over time it can happen. If you're taking in, this is aluminum, this is steel, over time, going like this here, you can make little scratches and dings and dents and start affecting the barrel. I'm sure, if you've done any research, you'll hear about, barrels having to be recrowned, things of that nature. But, it's just safer for the barrel to go from this end. Then the same oil soak patch, just wipe down the outside of it. I generally don't worry too much about, oils off my hands and fingerprints, because, well, not really oils, but you're worried more along the lines of acids and things that could possibly harm that. But just wipe it down, get it a general state of cleanliness. Then, yeah, we'll just use this one. Because you gotta think, once you spray everything down, your hands are soaked in that oil too, so. Then the same thing with your frame. Just take your oil soak patch, wipe everything down real good. Which, this is going to take me a little longer than it normally would for just a maintenance cleaning, because I'm doing the video shoot, but I can usually have it filter stripped, cleaned, and put back together in about 5 or 10 minutes. I mean, it doesn't take very long to do this.
I have a question.
What would that be?
Can you over oil or over clean a gun?
No, it's impossible to over oil.
What about over clean? Will it hurt the gun if you clean it too much?
No, it won't hurt it at all. The cleaner it is, the less chance you have of something going wrong with it when you need it.
Just in case your viewers are first-time gun cleaners.
Oh, okay. Yeah, generally it's almost impossible to over oil a gun. 1911s are notorious for liking to be ran wet, as it were, which means that they function best when they're well lubricated. Anything extra that it does not need, it will simply extrude it out. Any extra oil between the slide and your frame rails, things of that nature, will now some people like more of a paste on your frame rails, because they think, well, a dry paste or something like that doesn't collect dust as much and it's going to stay where you put it. I just generally oil everything and roll on with it, because I do this fairly regularly anyways. Now, if you let the trigger off while you're got it down like this, make sure to hold onto it firmly. You don't want to snap it up, because that can damage the firearm, because you have your hammer hitting against nothing supported. But just generally wipe it down, get all the gunk off of it. Once you got it pretty well wiped down, I like to take and give all your give it the spritz on all your moving parts. While it's took apart, it's pretty easy to go in to give you a little spritz on the trigger mechanism. Now, hopefully you can pick up on your three-prong spring, and then right up here is your trigger mechanism, your hammer and sear setup, your safety. Make sure all that's lubed fairly well. Put you a little oil on top and in your rails. Then we'll move on to the slide. And it's basically about the same procedure. Just take your patch, spray it with oil, and wipe it down.
How long does it usually take you to clean your gun?
With everything in total, which I'll admit I don't generally take the ejector pin, or not ejector pin, been at work too long. The firing pin, I don't usually take out with just a simple, routine maintenance. It's just been carrying it type thing. I might take it out every once in a while with a detail strip, but I can usually have this thing took apart, cleaned, and put back together in about anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. Then all your little small bits and pieces, your firing pin, just make sure it's got a good coat of oil on it to protect it. Maybe wipe your spring down. Now be careful not to stretch it out or anything crazy like that, because then you'll have to replace it. Which, depending on who you talk to, some people say run them till something don't work right and then replace it. Some people have prescribed round counts. It depends on what manufacturer you talk to as to what that prescribed round count should be, as far as spring replacements and things of that nature. This one, I've not really done a whole lot to it, except I rebuilt the original magazine, which I'll probably take and cover that process in a later video when I need to rebuild one again. But let's see here. I think I've just about got everything wiped down. You can see, which I'm sure you saw in some of the before footage, it kind of grody looking. That happens when you carry them day in, day out. I've read a lot of stuff about people, get in the habit of, they every day before they go to bed, they'll at least give them a wipe down with an oil-soaked rag, that kind of thing. But that is basically all there really is to cleaning a firearm. They make all kinds of different cleaners, specially designed for this and that. But just some good old-fashioned, some kind of gun bore cleaner to help loosen. Well, right here it says on the thing, cleans down the bore barrel, removes carbon, lead, and copper, so it loosens it up nicely. Scrub with a brush down the barrel till it starts looking shiny. Wet patch and dry patch till your patches. It's hard to get them to come out, like they went in, but as long that's what you want to shoot for. Is you saw how clean the patch was in the beginning of the video that came out of it. You generally want them to come out, nice and clean. So, I believe we will end the video here, and we will do the third part of the, I guess I'll call it the 1911 series or whatever.
How often do you clean your gun?
That's kind of a personal thing, and it kind of comes with usage. Personally, I will about every 6 months I will do a detail strip to get in and clean the gun as much as possible. But I try not to let it go any longer than 2 weeks without a good field strip and clean. And then, of course, I clean after every usage. Every time I go to the range, it don't matter whether, I shoot 1 magazine or 100 rounds, I'll still just take it down, clean it, and put it back together. Sorry about that, folks. My phone decided to be stupid and it cut the video off on me. So, as I was saying, how much you clean it kind of depends on, what you use it for. A gun that's generally a bedside gun, once a month is fine. If you carry it, I tried to field strip this one once every 2 weeks at least. Of course, I always clean every firearm used on a range day. So, I guess this one here is basically cleaned up. Oh, I did forget one thing. Something that is easily overlooked is your magazine. Magazine is real simple. Take your oil-soaked rag, and you just basically want to wipe it down. Nothing real special or fancy. Which, wipe off your follower. Kind of push it down, get in underneath your feet ears. But, that prevents it from rusting if it's blued or anything like that. Kind of help keep it from binding. But, easily overlooked. Not basically just give it a good wipe down like the rest of the gun. But we're going to end this one here. And then we will do the third video and put it back together, function test it, and it'll be ready to be put back into service.